Well, welcome everyone. My name is Jeff DeVerter. I'm the Chief Technology Evangelist for us here at Rackspace Technology, and I want to welcome you to the fall, the Q4 Solve Security Summit. Folks, we do these every quarter, right? So we come on for every week. We're here for a 30-minute conversation. This is the special one. This is where we come into you with an hour of great content. I've got some amazing guests lined up for us today. But before we get into all of that, guys, I know it's a fancy event for us here, but the same rules apply. I'd love to know who you are. I'd love to know where you are. I want you to be like Ramil. Ramil has already introduced himself. Look at him saying greetings. Loved that you're here. So introduce yourself, tell us who you are, tell us where you are. Let's impress my guests today with this global audience that shows up every week. Now, as I mentioned, this is the Solve Security Summit, and in this event, we are gonna dig into the research that we did here recently all about cybersecurity. Now, what we found is that 63% of companies out there say that cyber is the most important thing to them. Look at some of this data right here, where you find that it's not inflation, it's not digital transformation, it's not sustainability, although all of those things are incredibly important. The reality is that it all comes back to cybersecurity. Now, it doesn't mean that those things are things we don't need to pay attention to, but it's stuff that is that this trumps it. So cybersecurity, and our event today is to dig into all of these things. Now, this research that our event is digging into is research. Well, every quarter we go out and do research, but this time we went out, we talked to over 1,400 different IT decision makers in 10 different countries. Can you believe that? That's a lot of people in a lot of geographies. In fact, not only all of these different locations, oh, look at all you wonderful people showing up and following instructions so well by introducing yourselves. All right, back to the title. But not just these 1,400 different folks in these 10 different countries, but look at all these different industries that are accounted for here. Retail, manufacturing, government, healthcare, life sciences, entertainment, goes on and on. This is a solid bit of research that we did. And it's not a small sampling, it's a very large sampling. And we're gonna unpack a lot of this information today. All right, let's look at some of the folks who are introducing themselves here. I'm gonna look down for one moment. We got Austin, Texas here, Houston is here, Cleveland is here, San Antonio, Travis Renty not in the house, but close enough. Who else? Alan is here from Texas. Chattanooga, Tennessee. Mike Clark is here. So glad to see you. Charleston, South Carolina. The list goes on and on, folks. I'm so glad that you are here today. This is going to be a great event. And like I mentioned, we have several different guests that are here. We are going to break cybersecurity challenges down into a couple of different primary categories. We're going to start with a bit of an overview, but then dig into really how we got here. How did this cyber situation occur? What was it like in the past? How did we get to where we are today? Then we're going to dig into how to deal with some of those challenges. How do we neutralize this threat? How do we prepare ourselves for that? And then the last section, we're going to dig into how AI is impacting cybersecurity. And we know that AI is impacting everything these days. Now, as we get into this, oh, look at that. Nigeria is here. Mexico is here. Myrtle Beach is here, just west of Nigeria. Middletown, Delaware is here. Casey is here. Casey, thanks for supporting. Glad that you are here representing from Dallas. All right, well, these research projects that we do, we oftentimes will partner up to get great content for that. Jimmy Luteran is here as well. But in this case, we partnered up with Microsoft. And so first of all, a huge thank you to Microsoft for your support in not only helping to sponsor this event, but helping us decode and debug that. And to get us started here today, I wanted to invite Saira Mohammed onto the stage. Now, she is the chief. Well, there she is. Hi, welcome to the program, Saira. So glad that you're here.
Thank you so much, Jeff. Excited to be here with you and the group. Thanks for the opportunity. Love it.
Oh, so glad that you are here. Now, you're the Chief Security Advisor over at Microsoft. That is a fancy title. What does it actually mean?
Yeah, yes, it is a fancy title, but I have the opportunity and the privilege in my job to work with several CISOs and CIOs across the cybersecurity industry. And my goal is to help improve our customers' cybersecurity program. So when I talk to our customers, I talk about strategic topics, Jeff, like zero trust architecture, cyber resiliency, threat landscape topics, right? And the biggest topic right now on everybody's mind is about AI. How can AI help improve businesses, right? And when they do that, they want to make it secure. So we're going to be talking about that today. So yes, a lot of strategic topics is what I work with our customers. And Jeff, my job is to provide industry best practices, guidance, and I talk not just about technology, but also focus on people, process, and technology. So that's my job at a high level, Jeff.
Fantastic. That must keep you kind of busy, I would think. But what a great opportunity getting to share not only Microsoft's technology, but then also how that gets implemented on a day-to-day basis to help people stay secure. Now, in the research, Saira, we were talking about this earlier, 69%, where's my data right here? There we are. 69% of global IT executives say that security concerns have increased over the past 12 months. Now, that's what we find in our research. Has that been true of what you found as you've talked to leaders around the world?
Yeah, so I want to start by saying, right, cybersecurity is not just an IT issue, right? It affects every aspect of the business. So, like I said, many of the customers that I interact with are in the middle of digital transformation journey. So, right, they want to transform their products. They want to provide a simplified customer experience. They want to improve productivity and also streamline their business operations. And guess what? Most importantly, they want to do all of this in a safe and secure manner, right? So every CIO or CEO that I talk to agrees that security is a must, and it's a top priority, and it's not an afterthought, Jeff. So that's a key thing I would highlight. The other thing I would call out is, and not just from the business perspective, right? We also need to pay attention to the outside in perspective, which I call it the threat actor perspective, right?
Right.
So if you look at it from the threat landscape, we have seen an increase in number of attacks, right? The speed, the scale, and sophistication of these attacks are unprecedented. And cyber criminals are targeting and attacking all sectors, right? Every industry has been targeted by ransomware. And we see ransomware on the news on a regular basis, right? And then other thing I would call out is cybercrime as a service. You may have heard that term, right? It's a big business. Think about cybercrime as a service, just like a software as a service business, right? These services are so easy to find on the dark web. It requires less technical skills. And the sad part is they're cheap. And then these bad actors are getting safe harbor from nation states, Jeff, and you cannot take legal action against them. So yeah, that's why cyber security is ranked so high, right? And then cybercrime also has financial consequences in the form of fines, ransom payments, and then data recovery cost, right? I know, Jeff, we talk about numbers in the report. Cybercrime, cyber attacks actually has cost the world over $6 trillion annually, and it's expected to grow more than 10 trillion US dollars and in 2025. And then the other big data point I would call out is when a business gets impacted by a cyber attack, consumer trust declines by an average of 67%, Jeff. So I just want to call out a few numbers, but there's a lot going on in this space.
There is so much going on in the space, and I'm excited that we get to spend an hour digging into it, but the reality is we need days to really unpack all of it because it is such a challenge. And I have to tell you, that was one of the biggest shocks for me about a year ago, is when I learned more about the fact that it's a service. Just as you know, if you need some good email in the world, we're going to go to Office 365 as a SaaS-based service. Well, sadly, there are security challenges out there. There are businesses out there to help attack innocent people. And that is just shocking. And that's what leads towards such a, we found it also in the study, what some of the top concerns are that we're going to unpack today that business leaders are experiencing and what they're concerned about, whether it's that new security needs driven by migrating and moving over to the cloud, changes and challenges and finding the right people to do that work, not even understanding all the vulnerabilities that are in the infrastructure. This is just a sampling of what we had found in that survey. And these are the things that are top of mind of business leaders today. Now, Saira, as you know, I got a fancy title, Chief Technology Evangelist, which means I get to go to all sorts of different events. And so at one of the events I was at this year, I was just walked around with a microphone asking people in the event floor, what are their biggest concerns about cyber? We also sent our amazing team, our field reporters of Megan and Julia, down to downtown San Antonio to ask just kind of men and women on the street what their biggest concerns were. So let's roll that video and take a look at what folks say. What do you think is the biggest threat that individuals and companies face right now around cybersecurity?
It's a really good question. I think it's foreign interference, but also data security.
It's really simple for people to get the information they want out of you.
I think social engineering is probably the biggest cyber threat today.
And no matter how you try to get rid of them, they always keep coming back.
Password leaks. I don't know all of my passwords, so I tend to use the same password all the time. That obviously is not ideal.
I mean, you can't even jump into Uber and then go somewhere without someone hacking into that Uber account. All of a sudden, when you look at your bank account, there'll be like a $22 withdrawal.
I would say AI, we don't know the capabilities of what AI can actually do or how it can affect information security.
All right, so folks, what do you think? What are your biggest concerns? You've been so good about introducing yourself in the chat. Now, what are some of the things that you think are the biggest cybersecurity concerns for you as individuals or maybe even for your companies? Don't give away any state secrets, but tell us a little bit about what concerns you. But with that, Saira, why don't we go ahead and bring some other folks up onto the stage? I'm going to start by introducing Karen O'Reilly-Smith. Now, Karen is the Chief Security Officer for us here at Rackspace Technology. So Karen, come on up onto the stage, why don't you? Karen, welcome to the program.
Oh, thanks, Jeff. Happy to be here.
I'm so glad that you're here. How about this nice light topic of cybersecurity for a Tuesday morning?
Oh, it's a light one to dig into right now. I mean, it's so popular, like Sari said. I mean, it keeps us busy 24/7. And you asked me before, what's changed? It wasn't this, 25 years ago, it was a side business. Now it's a full-time job. It keeps us hopping.
It really does. Now, let's get another racker up onto the stage with us as well. And for that, I want to introduce Scott Schlueter. Scott leads product for us over here at Rackspace, helping to ensure that all of the products and services that we offer are secure. Because, even though we're using the latest in capabilities that exist from the public clouds and private cloud, these are still custom solutions. So, Scott, we've got to make sure those are secure, don't we?
We do. And thanks for having me on. What struck me in that video is how common the vernacular of security is becoming to just the person on the street. You have one person who even mentioned, I'm concerned about AI. I mean, that's incredible, the awareness that we're starting to get. And as Karen mentioned, it's a full-time job. It keeps a whole industry going, but it's also empowering the business.
It really does. Now, cybersecurity was not front of mind for everybody. And Scott, that's a great observation that, how astute even folks on the street, on the sidewalk, down by the Riverwalk in San Antonio can speak about cybersecurity. But it wasn't always this way, was it, Karen? I mean, you've been in this career for a little while. Let's not give away ages and years. But what was it like back in, maybe we roll the clock back a decade or so. It wasn't always so front of mind.
No, it wasn't. It was always like just a side job. I mean, it was, small departments. You get a vulnerability report maybe once a quarter. You walk, even when you talk to other people in organizations of what you did, it was kind of this mystery job. People really didn't know what we did, or why we were there, or what was the benefit of it. And it was just, kind of like I said, it was something in the side. It wasn't front and center. It wasn't budgeted that way. It wasn't top of mind for anyone in an organization.
Yeah. So, in fact, I want to actually call out a comment that Nestor just made in the chat there, and because I just asked, what are your biggest concerns about cyber? And he mentions third-party exposure and how to respond. I mean, in the old days, you could secure a data center. And to do that, you had big locks on the doors and all was well. But now, we still have our own resources, but we're connected to so many other areas. That wasn't a challenge as much in the old days.
No, it really wasn't. And when Sari talked about it, I mean, and cybersecurity was more financially driven, years ago. When you
Yeah.
look what I looked 20 years ago, it was financial. It wasn't big business. There was no services you could go to. It wasn't like you went to, an eBay and you started saying, oh, I want to hack this, teach me how to do this. You didn't buy a service in those days.
Yeah.
It was small business. It was one-offs. It's big business now, and it's across industries. It doesn't make a difference what industry you're in today.
Yeah, and we mentioned earlier 69% in cybersecurity issues that in the past 12 months alone. I mean, these are real concerns. And so, Scott, you've been in this industry. You started in health. You did. I don't know if you started in healthcare, but your last big job before here was helping inside of healthcare. How have you seen it evolve over the years?
Yes. So I've seen it. Well, and I started off at the help desk. So hearing the problems, you very quickly become attuned to what the attackers are doing. But it is no surprise that security is still top of mind because it is such a dynamic industry, and we keep finding new ways that things are broken or exploited. And so, of course, we have to adapt accordingly.
That's right. And so as you're working on helping to secure solutions, I mean, let's talk about, some of the strategies that you'll help to employ in and around there, because, even as it was already called out, we're going to talk about AI here in a minute, but AI is a top concern. We found that 61% of AI security say that AI has increased issues, 62%, excuse me. So as you think about solutions in creating products, and let's think about that. As a company like Rackspace, who's going to, glue together multi-cloud solutions. Each of the clouds have great solution capabilities, especially Microsoft, right, Saira? And but when we take and connect those things together in custom solutions, well, that creates challenges. So, when you're putting things together, how do you balance? When you're using, cloud native as opposed to how you're enabling, even monitoring, or how's AI fitting into that scenario?
Yeah.
You, Scott, or yeah.
Go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, I find shocking about that statistic: 1% of organizations having an AI policy. I mean, we're first looking at this from the perspective of just data loss. For instance, are we accidentally putting our own proprietary code in there and saying, "Hey, does this look okay?" And then we've accidentally disclosed it. Hasn't even got into the realm of how's it being weaponized, but just on that one piece alone, I think we're determining that there's a big enough risk right there that we've all had to take a meaningful response.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, we also found in those results that 43% are worried about data leaks. So, Karen, as you think about how to secure us at Rackspace, how does this fit into your strategies and concerns, and how does that fit as we think back a decade or so, in what you had to deal with back that long ago?
Yeah, well, I think there's more tools that we have available to us now. It's going into that security stack. It's doing that cyber, hygiene that we talk about, protecting the assets, doing your endpoint protection. We didn't have a lot of those tools available. A lot of it was still, I remember scanning 20 years ago, and you scanned in a building at that time. You didn't do long distance scanning if it wasn't within your perimeter, your four walls. I mean, today I can sit in San Antonio and I can scan halfway across the world today. Yeah. So the tools have advanced so much since then. But I think AI is going to provide us a whole list of tools that we haven't even, cracked the nut yet.
Right. So, Saira, as you think, as Microsoft, applies security and applies AI to all of the solutions, no place is more important than in data. Let's talk a little bit about your strategies there.
Yeah, great question, Jeff. I think data security, like I know we saw the video, right? If you look at everything that's common is data. Data is so critical, and truly understanding what's critical to business, right? When I made the comment, cybersecurity is not an IT risk, it's a business risk, right? So when it comes to data, trying to take the time to understand what's critical to your business is number one. If you don't know your business data, what's critical to your business, it's hard to protect, right? So trying to take the time to understand your data, know your data. And guess what? It's challenging. I have done this before in my previous job. It's hard to go understand that business data because we are in the technical side, and you have to take the time to influence your business leaders, get to know them, build that relationship, and having that conversation at the business level to understand that business data, because you can't protect everything. You have to start with critical business data, because I use this example, Jeff. If you have a fire in your house, you can't take everything and run. You have to figure out what are the two things you will take and run, right?
Yeah.
So it's the same thing. Put on that mindset from the business side and have that conversation to understand your business critical data, and then figure out how to protect that, because you need to make sure you have the right controls in place, and then figure out your whole data lifecycle management. Once you know your data, you can protect it, detect it, right? Govern the data. Governance is hard. People jump to data governance without understanding the data. So, Jeff, we have solutions at Microsoft. These are technical solutions, right? But I know somebody in the audience pointed out, it's about the people, process, and technology. Again, focus on the people and process side and less on the technology. The technology is the easy part. So that's where Microsoft solutions from the technology side can help you do that data scanning, can help you scan that data and figure out, identify that data and discover that data for you. Previously, it was so hard to do that stuff. Now technology has those solutions where you can go find your data and use that data to go have conversations with your business to really understand your business critical data. So that's something I would highlight, Jeff.
That's perfect. And I love the fact that you led that answer with the people. You know, it always starts with understanding the business. It starts with understanding what those challenges are and where, you know, what are the goals and what are the business outcomes that we're trying to drive as well. Speaking of people, you know what? Why don't we go back and see what some more of those top concerns were from the visits at the conferences as well as down on the San Antonio Riverwalk. What do you think is the biggest cybersecurity threat that people and organizations face today?
I think the biggest threat is you don't know when it is happening. You don't even realize that you're under attack,
Right.
and you only find out after the fact.
One of the things that really scares me is people being able to hack into your devices. So like our pet camera is right in our living room, and in your home, it's your sanctuary. You want to feel safe there.
Being a human, it's very easy to forget your own password. We're more prone to setting passwords to be the same thing, and so maybe it's just us, and that's why it's sometimes easy to hack.
So what are the significant cybersecurity threats facing individuals or businesses today?
Okay, so maybe it's not just the people, but it's the ducks too. I love that part. All right, so what I want to do is bring up a couple more guests to introduce you to. So it's good to start with bringing and yes. All right. Sure what's happening. All right. It rained in San Antonio, which it rarely does. Okay, so
I'll jump in real quick because it seems like Jeff is having a little bit of connectivity issues. Hopefully you all can hear me okay. My name is Chris Hughes. I'm the president and co-founder at a company named Aquia, and I've been in the cybersecurity industry a couple of decades with a lot of focus around cloud and DevSecOps and software supply chain security. And I'll pass it over to Nikki.
Yeah, hey everyone. My name is Nikki Robinson. I am a security architect by day and a professor of practice by night. My focus is vulnerability management, human factors, vulnerability chaining. So everything from technical, practical usage to academic research.
And in all of the planning that you can do, you still can't solve for networking problems when they show up. I guess we could have had dual home to network, but we didn't get that far. All right, thank you so much, guys, for jumping in there while my network took a little break. I think it went out for coffee. So both of you, Chris and Nikki, thank you for being here today. Really delighted that you're here. And there was a question that popped up in the chat that I think leads us into our section where we're going to talk about how we combat this stuff today. And the question from Terreston was, oh, now I have to scroll, hang on. Do you think that the problem is really a lack of tooling? Does it come back to a lack of tooling, Chris?
I'm actually really excited to hear this question because the answer is a resounding no, at least from my perspective. We've seen that the average organization is juggling around 70 security tools. Many of these are not implemented, configured, tuned, or operating as they should be, and the security teams are drowning in cognitive overload, trying to make sense of all the data and all the findings and all the telemetry, all the noise. It isn't to say that tools aren't useful or necessary. Absolutely, they are. We have to use them to augment, our human operators in our environments. But we have lots of tools. Not enough people to man, configure, operate the tools, tune them. Get the insight that we want, and actually drive down organizational risk. So we have no shortage of tools. We have a shortage to man them correctly.
So the problem's not enough tools. The problem sounds like it's too many tools. Nikki, what are your thoughts on how we combat some of this stuff today?
Yeah, the tool conversation is one of my favorite. I've been doing a lot of research in this area because the complexity sometimes, if you have too much tooling, right, is that, you start to sort of say, oh, am I getting the right data here? Do I have false positives? Am I getting different data? How do I aggregate this data and sort of figure out what does this mean to me? So it is that that technology, but it's also the people, right? So if I've got 10 different tools that I'm managing, I have to configure them and monitor them and make sure I understand the data and the telemetry that I'm getting. It can become, like Chris mentioned, cognitive overload. There's only so much information that we can bring in at one time and really action on. And so I think that's one of the, we were talking about like emerging trends. To me, that's one of the sort of emerging trends is that balance between what do we need, versus what do we have.
Right. Now, one of the things also, especially as more and more of these solutions are being driven by, solutions that reside inside of a public cloud, how much are you recommending we start very cloud native in their security? And then what's a strategy for layering then in the appropriate tools to cover the whole solution?
Yeah, I'll go first. From my perspective, I definitely recommend that. There was an age and time where, the cloud was very scary from a security perspective. We don't own it. We can't touch it. We can't control it. But I think security has started to come around and realize that there's a lot of benefits of adopting cloud technologies. A lot of security control inheritance. You offload things to the cloud service provider or managed service provider. You can lean into cloud native services that can facilitate things like automation and better visibility and better governance of your workloads and your data, things of that nature. So I definitely recommend, for organizations that can start there. And then if you're not there already, start to take a look at your, existing on-premise legacy infrastructure and see what you can migrate. And then, from a security tooling perspective, see what the cloud service providers can offer in terms of native capabilities that you can use from a security perspective, and then start to plug in the gaps, where there are gaps, and there always will be. But just to, lean into the cloud provider initially, see what you can use from them. And then if there are gaps, tackle them.
I love that answer. And Nikki, I'd love to come back to you on this too, because while we talk about tools, you always draw it back to people. And I'd love your perspective on, we can talk about, starting minimalistic and tooling from cloud native and adding things, but how do we balance that on the people side as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I love this question too, because when you're thinking about, especially if you're moving from on-prem to cloud and you're managing two environments, or you have to sort of maintain them, that includes everything from patch management to continuous monitoring, incident response, all those things that you have to build into both sort of aspects. So I say, absolutely, if you can lean into the cloud native tooling, especially to get you going, as you're bringing systems, either moving them to the cloud or developing new systems, but, bring them online, as slowly as you can and sort of figure out what you need. And then as Chris said, address the gaps from there. That limits the amount that, unless you're scaling up your team, they may have to upskill and develop those skills in the cloud as well and manage those tools too. So it gives them an opportunity to learn the environment and manage them simultaneously, because a lot of companies are probably managing both as they're migrating to the cloud.
Yeah, great. Now, I love that you're talking about upskilling, because when we did this survey out talking to over 1,400 IT decision makers, which, by the way, you guys can download that for free. All of this stuff that we do is part of our Solve Thought Leadership program. Daniel's going to pop up here shortly a QR code that at any point you can go download that. But why don't you wait until after we're done here? But as we think about cyber skills and the capabilities there, it's one of the biggest concerns. In fact, 43% of the folks that we had talked to in our survey talked about how they are prioritizing and working with outside cybersecurity service partners. So let's talk about when to bring partners in. Now, Chris, you're a partner. This is the work that you do. Partners, the other thing that I found, in any IT discipline is partners can be used well, and sometimes you can throw good money after bad. How do companies utilize partnerships well, especially in cybersecurity?
Yeah, obviously I'm a little biased having a cybersecurity services company myself, but I think you kind of laid it out really well in terms of balancing that dichotomy of over relying on partners to where you outsource everything and you have no internal expertise or leadership or kind of oversight of what's being done or what's being worked on, or the alternative where you try to do everything yourself and you're simply drowning. You don't have the internal skills and expertise to do it. So from my perspective, I definitely recommend, take a look at some of your strategic digital initiatives, what you're trying to tackle, what you're trying to accomplish, and what skills do we have in-house? Where do we need to augment that with external expertise and consulting? And then also sometimes it's just helpful to get a set of fresh eyes or kind of an independent assessment of where things stand. Internal politics, organizational bureaucracy, things like that play a part, of course. So definitely, bringing that external expertise and oversight and guidance, if it's an area that you're trying to grow skills in, and use them not to just necessarily replace your staff, but we talk about upskilling and things like that to help your team learn and grow and evolve in certain areas and competencies as well.
Yeah. Alexander, by the way, I love your comment that you made about tooling and really looking for anomalies. But if we go back to, real quick, the topic about utilizing partners, let's look at some of the reasons that we found that companies are utilizing partners, whether it's a lack of internal expertise, a lack of internal resources, a lack of time, lack of training as well. Nikki, these are all the things that you were just mentioning. So what are some strategies? I mean, I love the fact that we can look for specialties in our partnerships. We can fill gaps with partnerships as well, but ideally, we're going to bring that cloud native capability, that cyber resilience capability into our own businesses as well. What are some strategies that companies can employ to do that?
Absolutely. I always think about things in the way of a maturity model, right? When you're building a cybersecurity program, maybe you do lean heavily on partnerships and outside counsel, getting some great consultants to come in and tell you sort of how do you build that, right? If you don't have the expertise to build a cybersecurity program, have someone come in and help you sort of plan that out and map that out. And knowing that you're not going to get everything done in a day or a week or a month or maybe even a year. But so start with what is most impactful, right? That's vulnerability management, that's continuous monitoring, that's getting your, endpoint detection and response, all of those capabilities, bringing those sort of determining what outside parties need to manage what. And then as you start to bring expertise into your cybersecurity program, then you can start to bring in people and say, hey, you know what? We need someone who's a cloud security engineer. We do need someone to help us manage this cloud environment and help us figure out where our gaps are. Let's bring in a cloud security engineer to help us do that. And even by bringing some people in, they can also help determine what other gaps might exist, right? So you could bring in a cloud security engineer and they might say, ooh, you know what? We actually need to bring in an architect. We need to understand, maybe we're going with a multi-cloud solution. Let's bring in an architect and help us figure out what this means to us. So I think once you sort of start building that program, then you can mature over time.
Love the fact that we talk about it as maturity, because it also gives us license to not be perfect today, but to chart a path of how we're going to get there. And in getting there, obviously, it's all about how do we make our organizations more resilient with cyber. Now, Chris, I know that's a passion of yours in thinking about not just how do we get great tooling, how do we have people aligned around it, how do we find the bad guys when they're in there, but how do we become as resilient as possible when it relates to cyber? So if you had a couple of things that you'd love to mention here around strategies for doing that, what would they be?
Yeah, definitely. The term resilient is near and dear to Nikki and I's heart. We actually host a podcast called Resilient Cyber that we've been running for a few years, so check that out. But as we often say on the show, and in cybersecurity, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when your organization is going to have a security incident or incidents as they continue to occur. And it's just trying to craft a strategy of how do we recover, respond, and learn from incidents or data breaches or security things when they occur, and iterate on that so that we can make our organization more resilient, implementing more compensating controls, mitigating controls in place, having things like fault tolerance and business continuity in mind. So we definitely recommend going down that route of just understanding that things are going to happen, and that's okay. It's just a matter of ensuring that you can keep doing your core business, functionality and capabilities, and not degrade so much that you basically cease to function. So definitely take a look at that. That resource, Resilient Cyber. We go deep on that topic with many different guests on many different areas of expertise, and resilient is near and dear to our heart, as I said.
Well, I would love to just personally give a plug for it. I show up anytime that I can. I put a mark on my calendar every Friday morning, 9:30 for my time in Central. But it's you guys get some incredible guests. I mean, you've had some incredible folks from military grade type people who've been in there to deep practitioners. It's incredibly interesting and a great conversation. But not just a weekly conversation, but at that link, you guys have got some great blog content as well. But I heard there's a book in the works as well.
Yeah, I'll let Nikki speak to that. Go ahead, Nikki.
Yeah, we're working on a vulnerability management book. This is one of the things that over the couple of years about looking into the cybersecurity space at large, right? We cover everything from detection engineering to cloud security and data analysis and AI and everything in between. And one of the things that we continue to see is that vulnerability management continues to be a challenge, especially as organizations are growing and the tooling is getting complex. Every tool that you bring into your environment requires patching and care and maintenance. And so we're working on a book called Effective Vulnerability Management that'll be out next year. And we want to cover a lot of those topics to help people. We're talking about building a cybersecurity program. We find that people struggle with the same thing with building a really mature vulnerability management program. And so we wanted to put together some great resources and some great guidance to hopefully help anyone that's struggling with building a vulnerability management program.
Perfect. I love it. All right. Well, thank you both for being here. Don't go too far. We've got you up in the next segment as well. But as I mentioned, Microsoft has been a huge supporter of our program here and of this research that we've done. And of course, that's evident by Cyber being here today. But let's take a look for a minute at a little video talking about the capabilities that Microsoft brings all around cyber across the whole platform.
Your world, the world made up of your people, data, ideas, and everything valuable to your organization, can't exist in isolation. It needs to move, connect. Every day, security gets more complex. You need a way to defend your world wherever it goes, so your people can work confidently from anywhere. The answer is here. It's all of us, working together to keep each other safe across the entire digital journey. Getting ahead of threats. Putting AI to work. Using a comprehensive approach to do more with less. A way to protect it all. So your world and the people who are part of it can keep moving forward fearlessly into tomorrow.
I love that video. That was Vasul there at the end, and she's amazing. She's been on the program as well. Now, as we head into this next segment, I'm really excited about it because what we're going to do is it's a bit of a rapid fire, if you will. So everyone's been bringing up AI as we've gone through the program here this morning, and it's impacting every aspect of business today, whether it's an individual trying to plan a vacation or whether it's an organization trying to get a better understanding of what's happening in and around their organization. But of course, it's impacting security. So what we're going to do now is actually give everybody a chance to not only make a point about this, but also to follow up on previous folks. So let's start with Karen. So Karen, come on up. Reminder Karen is our Chief Security Officer here at Rackspace. So not only keeping us cyber safe, but all the safes. So Karen, let's talk AI for a second. How do you see it impacting you and your world?
First of all, it's exciting. I mean, this is something we haven't seen for a very long time, this kind of technology. One of the things with AI, I think it's going to allow us to really detect a lot of threats a lot quicker in real time. But there are downsides to that. You know, we've got to be careful about what we put out there. We've got to make sure our guardrails are there. We've got to be able to use AI responsibly.
Yep, it's exciting and it's got to be responsible. Now, Scott, as you're working on these, what are your thoughts about what Karen's sharing here?
Yeah, I'm so excited to see what AI is going to bring to the table for cybersecurity detection and response. I do think that we got to cover the basics, just like when we got social media training. You know, what's appropriate to put out there and what's not. We're going to recycle that same conversation, change the subject, and I do think that it's going to be an evolving industry. It's hard to predict it, but you know, spoiler alert, we're going to try.
We're going to try. We're going to nail it too. So Chris, over to you. Same question. How do you see AI impacting your areas of cyber that you're involved in?
Yeah, I'm glad to hear the responses of the previous participants because, like them, I share the excitement of the promise of AI. You know, obviously, we know it's a tool like any other tool in software and cybersecurity, and it can be used for good or bad, and malicious actors are going to use it for the wrong purposes. But on the defensive side, we can use it for a lot of great purposes when we talk about workforce, augmenting staff, facilitating automation, developing more secure software, responding to incidents faster. I'm really excited about where the promise of AI can lead us. And like he said, you know, it's just a matter of using it appropriately, securely, and ensuring that we have education and awareness within our organization about how to go about using it. So I'm excited about where we're headed.
Okay, you mentioned so many things. It sounds like a great outline for the next book. But Nikki, what are your thoughts on where Chris is thinking AI is going to impact?
Yeah, I want to echo what he says, mostly from the human factors angle, right? We have so much opportunity to help our security practitioners out there, you know, enhance tooling to help augment the work that they do because, you know, we know that the cybersecurity workforce, I think we're all a little bit tired. I know I'm tired. So I know having some AI tooling, things like that can be really beneficial and could not echo enough the ability to do it properly. I think it's something we have to take our time and not rush into it too quickly, you know, to really evaluate how it's going to be beneficial to us. But yeah, I absolutely see the benefits. I think we just have to think about how it's going to be impactful for us.
Yeah, so Saira, over to you. Now, you're in a really interesting position over at Microsoft. Well, Microsoft at large in a super interesting position with needing to not only secure the whole suite, and the whole platform, but also helping companies make sure their individual solutions are secure. How is AI playing a part there?
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. So I know we've been doing traditional AI for a while, so maybe I'll take this opportunity to share information on Gen AI, right? The generative AI part. As you all have heard, the partnership with OpenAI that Microsoft has been doing, right? So it's very exciting. So maybe I'll take a few minutes to talk about the why, right? Why are we doing this? Why another tool such as Security Copilot, right? So if going back to the problem statement here, when we talk to our customers, our customers are swimming with data. And in security, they want answers. They don't want to give them more data to process. They want outcomes like you were talking about, Jeff. They want answers and they want to fix it and also know how to fix it. And that's where Security Copilot solution comes into play, right? When you ask a question, it gives you a response. And it gives you a response so you can take action, right? So you can communicate with Security Copilot using human natural language, right? So our security platform at Microsoft is focused on helping transform data into action. So for example, I know in the audience, they pointed out using AI for SIM and SOAR, right? That's where we are starting. With Security Copilot, we are starting with Security Operations Center use cases, helping our incident responders take actionable insights to help respond to incidents and take actions in a timely manner, right? Like Nikki was talking about, the incident responders have so much to look at. There's alert fatigue. Every second counts when you're in the middle of an incident, right? So that's where we are focused on helping our incident responders take actions in a timely manner. So for example, if you ask Security Copilot about a particular vulnerability, and if your machine is impacted or somebody else's machine is impacted, it'll respond in a matter of seconds with answer to help you, whether it's not or whether it's impacted or not, and also give you recommendations on what you can do to make your machine safe, right? So the key things, couple of things, Jeff, real quick. Security Copilot or any generative AI tool is not here to replace human beings. It's guiding humans to take actions and help them respond to incidents in a timely manner, because every second counts, right? Pretty passionate about this topic, Jeff. I'm super excited about this. We still don't have everything figured out. We are starting with Security Operations Center use cases, and our goal is to continue to evolve this capability and integrate that with the Microsoft platform suite, the end-to-end suite.
Well, and Saira, we talked about this earlier, and I love this example, and that is, a lot of times we're utilizing tooling, to find that needle in the haystack. And when we're talking about the quantity of data that exists that AI needs to pay attention to on the security side, it's like finding a needle in a needle stack. And I love the fact that you called out that every second counts when there's a challenge.
Yeah, definitely agree. There's so much data and people are struggling. And because of the alert fatigue that's going on, 44% of alerts don't go investigated. So you're like somebody talked earlier, right? The bad guy's already in your environment and you're struggling to find out what to do. And this is where AI and Gen AI can help you with additional information to augment humans to help do the right things.
That's right. Karen, what are your thoughts on that?
No, I agree with Saira. I think the tools, it's what we need. We've got too much data coming at us all at once. And even with the automation that we'll do today, I think that AI tools that we're bringing out is going to help us crunch a lot of data very quickly. And, come back to us and provide us those trends that they're seeing, the pattern that they're seeing. Right now, we're using a lot of visuals. You've got trained analysts doing, but it would be so great to put these tools in their hands, that the data's crunched for them. This is large volumes of data we got to look at. We've got to get the targets right, and we got to pinpoint them. These tools are going to help us do that a lot quicker than what we can do manually.
They absolutely are. So Scott, over to you. How about AI impacting the world of security?
Yeah, I saw a great comment over here. Nestor pointed out, what about AI enhancing phishing attempts?
Nestor's 2 for 2, by the way.
What's that?
Nestor's 2 for 2, by the way.
Yeah, and I think that's absolutely on point, because with a reinforcement model, you can say, all right, go ahead and improve this email and see how many clicks you get. The more clicks you get, the better you're doing, and that's going to improve the effectiveness of that phishing campaign. I certainly see that as a possibility, and other forms of social engineering too. What if we get in the realm of deep fakes, where someone posts a shaky camera video and it shows like the delivery truck of a vendor, and they're doing terrible things. Never happened, but the fallout could be very real, and those are types of attacks that we just have not fully experienced yet. Or let's say, okay, I'm good in Python, but I have no Rust experience, and I found a great proof of concept in Python. I'd like to translate that over. I don't have to know the language. With Gen AI, I can just throw it in there and say, hey, by the way, could you give me 1,000 variants from this too while you're at it? Actually, let's add a 0. Let's do 10,000. We're just going to throw it on there, and it's no problem for me. It's just a little bit more computation. And these threats, we don't know what's going to happen with it, but I am kind of curious, what the panel thinks as well, how we're going to protect this.
I'll
Yeah,
jump
go
in
ahead.
there
Go ahead.
quick. I was going to say, from my perspective, I think you're spot on in the sense that, we don't know exactly how it's all going to play out. But I think approaching it with a sense of curiosity rather than one of kind of fear, uncertainty, and doubt, which is kind of pervasive in cybersecurity of how we typically approach things. We know that businesses are going to use these for very innovative purposes, and it's important for cybersecurity to try and do the same. And as you point out, it can be used for good in terms of, trying to produce more secure software and more secure code, or it can be used for bad, trying to, produce malicious exploits for software and code, for example. But I think if we can adopt it for the right purposes and build competencies and skill sets around using AI for defensive purposes, we can try to keep pace with the malicious actors that, they're most definitely going to be looking to use it for nefarious purposes as well.
Indeed, indeed. All right, Nikki, so you're a champion for the people and transforming the people, but how about AI? How's that impacting it all?
It's funny. I will try not to be my resident doom and gloom self in cybersecurity because I think that's sort of my default, right? I'm in cyber. But I do, I think about how, as Chris just mentioned, we're talking about how malicious actors can potentially leverage AI. So I think the idea is as long as we can consider, how they're going to use it, we can try to stay a step ahead, right? If I'm thinking about, well, how could AI be used? We were talking about malware variants or ransomware variants, things like that. If we can sort of stay ahead of the curve and say, okay, I think this is how they're probably going to use it because I've evaluated attacks over time. So I think if we can help our incident responders, our security analysts leverage AI to increase the way that we enhance the way that we do detection and monitoring, it's a way that we can really leverage it ourselves and be prepared for that. I think that's the best thing, right? Is to just sort of say, hey, we kind of know it's coming. That's okay. We're going to be prepared for it and leverage it ourselves. So, we can be prepared and act quickly when these things do come up.
Yeah, so it sounds like we go back to the beginning of the conversation. It's about tooling. It's another tool in the tool chest. But Saira, let's go over to you. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, 100% agree with what Nikki said and previous panel members, right? So we need to, like I said, right, when we are using AI, we're using AI capabilities along with humans, right? So you have to understand not just the benefits of what AI or Gen AI is bringing to the table, but also the risk, right? Because you need to think about what could go wrong, right? Securing AI is similar to securing software. It's simple as basic hygiene, right? So we all have software running. We are trying to secure software. Think about the same mindset about how you need to secure AI as well. And Jeff, I would call out, that's why at Microsoft, we have a practice where we talk about, it's called responsible AI by design, which is we have a set of 8 principles: security, privacy, accountability, transparency. I can go on, but it's on the website if you're interested in understanding more. What we're trying to do with that responsible AI by design is our goal is to make sure we think about all these bad things that could happen earlier in the life cycle, and we make sure the right controls are built in while you're designing these AI systems, right? You need to make sure they're done earlier in the life cycle and not after the fact. You need to think about what could go wrong and be able to account for that. Doesn't mean it's 100% secure, right? You still have to continuously do that even after it's in production. So I would call out the responsible AI by design framework, Jeff, as one reason. And the other thing is you want to pay special focus and attention on the data that is being used to train these AI models, right? Data quality is really important because there are threats and risks about data poisoning, right? So you have to really understand what data is being used to train these models and keep them up to date, because that's really important to take into account. And then think about all the threat modeling around these AI systems, what could go wrong, and make sure you're accounting for that. So you're not reacting but trying to be proactively thinking about all these risks earlier. So
I love it. And one of the things you said in the middle of that was really talking about how it evolves, how the threat evolves, how the tool set evolves, being concerned about how these models are being trained as they evolve. It really makes me think a lot more about, this is one of the tools in the resiliency tool chest, isn't it, Chris? Let's bring Chris up for just 1 second. So Chris, as we think about as we think about AI as a tool, as we think about cybersecurity as a discipline, and we think about how we make our organizations resilient, I think ultimately it means is we're never done, are we? We have got to constantly evaluate, we have to constantly evolve and transform to meet the challenge.
Yeah, I mean, you're spot on. Essentially, there's a saying that security is not a product, it's a process or a mindset, and I think that that's where we're going with AI is it's going to be a journey that unfolds and we have to kind of keep pace the best we can. We're obviously going to be a little bit, reactive to what the malicious actors do with AI and how they use it for nefarious purposes. But as some of the panelists point out, we're already using it for a lot of innovative purposes for good as well, from SOC, trying to help expedite incident response and, drive down impacts of incidents to producing more secure software and products. So really, it's an exciting time to be in cybersecurity, and I think AI is going to be a force for good if we use it the right way.
Well, and to build on what Nikki said earlier, I mean, Nikki, you mentioned that thinking about cyber from the lens of it being a maturity model. And if we don't have to be perfect with it today, we just need to make sure that we're evolving as we move forward in the future. So I do want to call out one more time that Chris and Nikki do have their weekly podcast that they do right here on LinkedIn. And if you go follow them or just follow that little QR code, you're not only going to find how to subscribe to that, but you're also going to find a lot of other great content there. A huge tool in your toolbox. Well, folks, I want to thank you so much for being a part of our program today. My panelists that were here, thank you for taking the time out of your extraordinarily busy days to be a part of this program. This is a topic that is not a one and done. There's nothing in technology that really is one and done. And the reality is that in cyber, there is so much that's shifting. Karen called it out earlier. You remember where she talked about even how there are effectively SaaS-based services that are for hire that the bad guys can use to be even badder and be more aggressive. So I want to also encourage you, if you want to dig into more of the details that we had and talked about here today, you saw some of the slides popping up, just go ahead and download the research paper that we have here. It's a white paper. It's got a lot of great graphics in it. It's not all deep and heavy reading. You can skim through there and get the information that you need. Just follow the QR code that is on your screen. Now, you may have also noticed that this program, aside from my internet, was so well produced. And so what I want to do really quickly, they're going to hate me to death, is to bring Megan and Daniel up on stage just for 1 minute. I'd love for you guys to give a round of applause for the excellent production work from both Megan and Daniel. Daniel Gibson, Megan Fleming, friends, key members. This program could not have happened without them. Of course, also Gracie Lepere, who helps to shepherd all of the cats to make all of these things happen. So huge thanks. And then also behind this camera, in fact, if we go to the widescreen shot here, you'll see Chris over in the corner. Chris is the excellent production coordinator on my side here. I just gave you a title boost there, Chris, as well. Everyone, thank you so much for being a part of the program. I'll remind you that all of this information can be found over at rackspace.com/solve. All of this is for free. It's part of the thought leadership program here at Rackspace. And I'd love for you to go visit that. You can find us back here every Tuesday morning, not for the full hour program, but we do a half-hour program every Tuesday morning at 8:30 Central Time. Even when I'm traveling at crazy hours of the day, I'd love to know that I can count on seeing you on those days as well. Thank you so much for being a part of the program here today, everyone. This has been a great experience. Again, a huge thank you to all of the guests. I'd love for you to go learn more over at Microsoft.com and their security capabilities. Go over to Resilient Cyber and see what they've got to offer there as well. And I'll see you back here next Tuesday morning at 8:30 a.m. Central Time. Have a great rest of your day, everyone.